What do you have against my likeness? All those posters, Eric, my double, and now this. Am I missing a hint? Should I start taking this personally? That statue was solid fucking gold. Literally. I'm not being metaphorical. Do you know how many artifacts I had to melt down to get it made? And poor Eric standing there for God knows how long just to pose for it. Well, what's done is done. And dinner's nearly ready.
Amita, the gate's open. I'm heading for the palace.
The royal guard's counterattacking. We'll be there as soon as we can.
I'm going after Pagan.
Alright. Not quite as well equipped as I would have liked, but that's okay. Let's go. More copyrighted music, by the way. It's very sunny out. What do you guys think? Seem a little too sunny almost? It's probably just me. I feel as though I'm somewhat ill-equipped to be able to do this. I don't have very many shotgun shells left. I have no health packs. Yeah. My rifle has enough ammunition, but otherwise, I don't know. Wish there was some sort of weapons cache that I could have come across before I came up here. But oh well. We will make do. Ow. Wait, was that a mounting wheel? Nope. Okay. Never mind. Let's do it. I can't pull out my guns, so this actually might not be that much of a firefight.
Come in. I apologize for the austerity I sent to help home. Chances are you shot them on your way in. Now, before we begin, to whom am I speaking? The son who returned to scatter his mother's ashes, or the lunatic who has murdered his way to the top of my mountain? If I was speaking to the first guy, then I would say, sit down. Let's be civilized. Enjoy some food. But we tried that before, didn't we? At our first meeting? You sat right here. Paul was off applying voltage to the nipples of your rude little +1. I stood just like this. And what were my exact words? Stay here, enjoy the crab rangoon, don't move, I'll be right back. Now, if you had just listened, just waited for me, then we would have come back here straight away, together, and scattered your mother's ashes. So then you must be the second guy, who didn't listen, decided instead to join the other monkeys and start throwing his shit around. But I'll tell you what. I call a do-over. I say you have two choices. One, you could shoot me, boring, or you could sit down, enjoy some food, and you and I will go scatter your mother's ashes together.
Ah, interesting. Yeah.
So, who did you kill? Is it Amita? Sabal? Doesn't really matter. I already know. I just want to hear you say it.
Fuck you.
Goodness, boy, you didn't even blink. Well, you do realize that you're just giving away your country, right? It's yours. It's always been yours. Kyrat is yours. I pulled you off the bus in the first place to pass it on to you. I suppose you could take it back. You're halfway there. One down, one to go. Not that I want to put ideas in your head. At least now we know you have a taste for doing what it takes. Well, no more putting it off, I suppose. Well, come on. And don't forget your mother. You do realize that urn represents all that's left of the old Ajay. The pre-Kyrat Ajay. Once you spread those ashes, all the ties you have to that previous life are gone. And then what happens? Well, I suppose you could do what I did after Mohan killed Lakshmana. Oh, you didn't know that, did you? Huh. Yes, your father killed your half-sister, and then your mother killed him in return. I simply continued where she left off. I killed so many people for them. But then I realized I was only using Lakshmana's death as an excuse to do whatever I wanted to do. Just as you use those ashes as an excuse to do whatever you want to do. God damn if it isn't fun. Well, you finally made it. You know, the one and only time I walked into this place, I came in a sane man and came out like this. You will come out a king. Well, go on, men. Do what you came here to do.
Wow. I'm happy that I made this decision, honestly. Some people might not be too happy with it, but I really like Pagan Min. Like, as a character, you know? What's this say? Von Golly's journal. Let's go ahead and read it. I didn't collect very many of them. Regardless. 1990. Ajay. Know that everything I've done is for you. All I have ever wanted is for you to grow up in a safe and prosperous country, but that goal has required sacrifice. I regret that I wasn't there to see you, to see your first steps or hear your first words, but the burden of command leaves little room for sentiment or distraction. Your mother used to get upset when I spoke about your future training, but if this war should outlive me, you must be ready to assume my position. The future of Kyrat is in your hands, Mohan. I think that essentially this entire time I was pretty much just choosing between my mother and my father. Amita represented the mother and Sabal represented the father in a way, right? You know, especially considering Sabal was always talking about Mohan. Huh. Alright.
All choices have consequences.
All of this shit could have been avoided had I just sat down and ate the crab rangoon.
Darling, you got to let me know. Should I stay or should I go?
Alright, oh god, okay, I have mixed feelings about this game all around, but that ending I really do appreciate. The decision that I made, I'm much happier doing what I did as opposed to killing him, because as Pagan said, that would have been really boring, and I think that a lot of people chose that, and nah, no thank you. I'm not intrigued by killing the most interesting character in the game. I appreciate what I was able to do at the very end, and I mentioned earlier in the playthrough that evidently there's sort of an Easter egg ending where if you just sat and waited for Pagan to get back, from, you know, torturing that guy or whatever, and you just had your crab rangoon, he would have been like, alright, let's go, and you would have put your, you know, put your ashes where they belong, and then you would have just flown away. Essentially what just happened there, and he evidently was going to give you Kyrat in the first place, so killing all these people, all the crap that happened in between, was not even necessary. None of it had to happen. And that's very, like, very Stanley Parable-ish, you know? That's a very, yeah, that kind of narrative is really interesting to me. Now, the rest of the game. What should I say about the rest of the game? Well, for one, it's pretty much Far Cry 3. And, to say I'm not disappointed is a lie. You know, I am. I'm a little bit disappointed in what ended up happening in this game. The story was virtually non-existent if you take away the Pagan Min parts. Sabal was boring as shit. Amita had some interesting parts, but I didn't really like her. So, like, just as a person, I didn't like her. So, overall, neither of those two supporting characters were very good. What they represented was interesting between the mother and the father, or at least that's my interpretation, but as characters, as actual people, not very interesting. I liked Herc. I thought he was alright. Longinus annoyed the shit out of me. I didn't really find anything interesting about him. I know a lot of people seem to really like him, but yeah, I wasn't too fond of him. I found Herc kind of funny in a sense, meaning that he's a complete fucking moron, and I like that part. It was a bit amusing, but not that much. He was okay. The English guys, the stoners. I don't know. They're okay. Just overall, most of my reactions to this game is, yeah, that was okay. Like, none of it was really like, oh my god, this was amazing, or this was great, or this was terrible. None of this game was not bad. I'm never going to sit here and act like this game was bad. It wasn't. But once again, much like pretty much the rest of this year, in terms of gaming, I'm left kind of disappointed. I just feel a little bit, I feel like unfulfilled, I think is the best word for it. I feel unfulfilled by what happened in this game, overall. There were a couple of interesting parts, as I said, but overall, I don't know. Troy Baker was amazing. He's always fucking amazing. Pagan Min's character wasn't quite Voss. He wasn't that level of, like, oh my god, this is an amazing antagonist, but he was still very good. Very, very good. I really enjoyed him. And I also feel like, much like Far Cry 3, they underutilized their most impressive antagonist, and they incorporated characters that weren't nearly as interesting, for whatever reason I don't understand. You know, if I'm not going to spoil anything, but just understand, you know, Far Cry 3, Voss was not exactly, in as much of the game as, most people would have liked, you know? So that was kind of, upsetting, but for what time you had with that character, it was very, very interesting and a lot of fun, you know? And Pagan Min, on the other hand, it wasn't as if, it wasn't the same sort of length, like, he was in throughout the entire game, unlike Voss was, but you really only had like 3 or 4 actual in-person encounters with the guy, and most of it was done over radio, and I'm just like, And the vast majority of the encounters you have with him are at the end. You know, between the prison and this most recent one at the very end. It's just like, I don't know, man. I really wish they had incorporated him more, because I feel like it would have made the game more interesting overall. I don't know, man. I thought that it was just, I don't know, underwhelming. Underwhelming, I think, is the best way to put it. I've heard some people say that Far Cry 3, you know, was good, and I've actually heard a couple people say that they thought Far Cry 4 was better for the fact that, or for the thought that the gameplay was more fun and less, it took itself less seriously. But there was absolutely no story, or not absolutely no story, but very little story in this game, whereas Far Cry 3, I really enjoyed the story. I really did. Granted, yeah, it's a little silly, but it still was a very enjoyable story. And that was a big part of why I liked it so much. I felt motivated to do the things that I was doing as Jason in Far Cry 3 because I had relationships, I had connections with people. In this game, your main character, the protagonist, isn't even a person. He's hard, like, there's nothing about him that I can think of that's a description. He's like fucking Qui-Gon or something. He doesn't have a personality. Fun fact, though, the voice actor for Ajay Ghale played Keith in Far Cry 3, which I thought was kind of interesting. Keith is the guy who got raped by the Australian dude, or it was more so insinuated, but he got raped. So I thought that was kind of cool. I don't know. Graphics were fantastic. I thought graphics were great. Like, if you... a lot of people, like, were very impressed with Far Cry 3's graphics when they first came out, and I've actually heard comparisons saying that, oh, that's not that much better than Far Cry 3, but honestly, I want to go back and play Far Cry 3 because I really think there is quite a bit of a difference. I really enjoyed the world in Far Cry 4. I thought that the Himalayas and all that was an excellent setting. It was very colorful, very pretty, and much more dynamic of a world than Far Cry 3 was. I felt like if I went from one place to another in Far Cry 3, it was pretty much the same thing. It was all just green. Whereas Far Cry 4, I felt as though, you know, if I go from one part, like one region of the game to another, there's a vast difference. Overall, I'd say this game was alright. Like, this game reeks of 7 all over it. Like, it's pretty good, but it's nothing I'm going to write home about. I'm not going to play this game again. I had my fill. I enjoyed it for what it was, and I'm okay now. I feel like Far Cry 4 was almost like Saints Row 3, in the sense that it's like, it's kind of silly. It's like going from the seriousness of the previous one, it's being a little bit more silly, but it's not quite silly enough for me to go like, holy fuck, this is hilarious. You know, like Saints Row 4 was hilarious. Saints Row 3 was just meh. I feel like this one was the meh, and in the next Far Cry, they can do one of two things. They can go back to what they were in the first 3, you know, a little bit more politically ambitious like they were in the second one, and story-wise, it was a little bit more serious in 3. Or they could go all outright, who gives a shit, I am blowing stuff up, I'm going to be a superhero, I'm going to fly, all that crap, and they could do that in the next one. I like Saints Row 4. I don't know, I'm interested to see where they go with the next game and what direction they decide to take. I don't really have very much else to say about this, honestly. I thought it was pretty good, and I've said that about a million times at this point. Yeah, I don't know. With games like this where I'm usually kind of disappointed, I always have a hard time really coming up with things to say, because the games that are the worst for Let's Plays are the ones that you were going into it thinking they were going to be great, and you come out thinking, well, that wasn't bad, but it was alright. Because at that point, I can't bitch about it. It wasn't a bad game, but I also can't, like, sing praises about it either. So it's just like this middle ground stuff where I just have a hard time forming any sort of emotions over it, right? Anyway, I think that that's really about it. I think that I've overstayed my welcome in my quote-unquote review of this game. So I think we're going to go ahead and stop it here. And, yeah, I hope you guys enjoy the series. Stay tuned, because there's going to be some interesting stuff going on for the channel pretty soon, I feel like. Older games. There's going to be 2 new older games that I'm going to be doing a playthrough of. One that's really old, like over a decade. Almost, wait, let me think. Over 15 years old. It was made in the 90s. That's how old it was. Late 90s, but still. A lot of fun. It's replacing a different game that I was going to do. I was going to do a horror game. This one isn't really a horror game. And I've never played it before, and I think that that'll be really interesting. And there's also another one that I feel like is very ambitious in terms of storytelling. And I plan on doing one of them with Alex of GameWorks, if you are familiar with him. And the other one I'm going to be doing a 3-person playthrough, very similar to my Last of Us Best Moments playthrough I did back in the summer. And I'm also going to continue Dragon Age the same way I have been, in case you just want to hear me alone. That's pretty much how the structure is going to be for the rest of December. Just gotta get things set up to where all that works out, but stay tuned for all that, I suppose. And that's about it. So, if you enjoyed this series, please be sure to like and subscribe and all that, and I will see you guys next time.
Amita, it's done.
It's over? We won? I can't believe we won! Ajay, did you find out where Lakshmana was?
I found it, Amita. My mom's at rest now.
All right, Ajay. You take your time. We'll need your help rebuilding, but that'll come tomorrow. Today, we've earned a rest. I owe you a great deal. Thank you.
Hello, David. Oh, Mr. Gale. Well, I guess that's it then.
No more mayhem and destruction. Hanging up the old rocket launcher.
Right. I really love what you've done with the place. It'll be sad to see you go.
Put it on the shelf, as it were. Gathering dust.
Unless...
Some unfinished business, perhaps. Loose ends, isn't it? Or people to kill. That's what I just said, Donald. It's Yogi, you prat. Smoke?
Smoke?
Not this time.